giving them opportunities to start to take action, to start to be a little bit more involved, understanding what's happening in the community in a broad range of ways, or starting to raise their hand and say, I believe in basic income, and I want to make sure that I can kind of help promote that in whatever way possible, so that we can get to our goal of a federal national basic income. So at the heart of this is about community, and this is about kind of education, being in community together, building relationships with each other, and building relationships to the idea of basic income. And so over the last several years, it's been a pretty broad range of types of events. Like I said, it's been, car rallies during the heat of the pandemic, where we could get out in the streets but be safely distanced and still be able to make noise. Tabling events at existing, some people go to farmers markets or other like events that are already in planned, and do some tabling to engage with folks and have conversations, all the way back up to the bigger, broader like rallies and marches. And over the years, we've also heard from organizers that sometimes planning an event can feel pretty overwhelming. And so this year we have taken a little bit of a different approach, in the sense that we've really gone deep into what it would look like to host an event that's a film screening event in communities. We have a amazing growing library of films that we all have access to, and filmmakers who are very engaged in this broader community that we can connect you to. And so that's the piece that we are spending a lot of time kind of building more tools and resources, and kind of how to do that work. But also knowing that some people, especially folks who this might be their third or fourth or fifth event that they've organized for the Basic Income Day of Action, they might, there's some folks here that might want to do something other than a film screening. So anything you want to do is fantastic. The film screening is something that's new that we're adding to the list of options. And so we're going a little bit deep into that space here. Hearing from a lot of people in the community, that's something that they were excited about being able to do this year. So that's a little bit of the context, the background. What these meetings really are about is supporting you guys in doing whatever organizing you want to do. And so last week we did quite a bit of the starting, because last week was our first meeting, the starting of this process. And Chelsea's going to be able to share a little bit of what we started with, and then we'll move into really starting to hear from people, what they're planning, what they're thinking, what they need support on, so that we can make this a working session together to get you what you need before we head all back out into the world. So I'll hand it over to Chelsea.
Thank you. Yeah, so last meeting we kind of went through what it looks like to get an event pin on the map, and also shared like a how to host a film screening guide that we created. And I wanted to pull up the our event map, just to kind of show everyone where we're at. And so I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see that? Oh, let me widen it. Okay, cool. So we have some events on the map now. Super exciting, and we're even getting beyond just the US. We have some events. We have like many events in Southern California, which is awesome. And then we also have an event in Houston, Texas, and then even some in Spain. And yeah, and then they're just also to note, like, we also have organizers that are hosting like private events, like film screenings in their home. And so those are just like hidden because it's their like personal address, but there's someone in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and another another organization is doing a screening for their staff in kind of the Los Angeles area. And then we also have we know there are events being planned in DC and some in New York. And yeah, and so I realized my Run a Show doc is like also in here. So I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. But this map is kind of like where people will find your events, where you can, you know, share this out to promote your event, but also there's like a direct URL. But I do just want to kind of like zoom in real quick to show you what it looks like. And so when someone like clicks on the pin, they can also do a search from like the zip code to find some events close to them. But then when you kind of click on the event, this is then the main kind of like page where then people can RSVP and be able to like get further details to attend your event. And also you'll be able to communicate with those participants.
Yeah, we intentionally use Action Network as our kind of broad campaign or broad national, international event kind of focus areas, so that you guys can have access to being able to just send a quick email to everybody without having to manage a bunch of email addresses. Action Network is basically a tool that helps you guys do that. So if anybody signs up or registers for your event, and even if you have folks in your community who say like, oh, I think I want to go, ask them to register, and that and make sure that they're kind of in there. That'll help you with your head count, so you're just understanding how many people. It'll also help you, so if you need to send an update to folks, there's literally, when you're in there, you can just say like, send an email to everybody who's registered, and you can just blast out a quick email to be able to get the information out. So using Action Network and putting a pin on the map or getting your event in that system is awesome, so that when anybody is promoting their event, everybody sees how many pins are on that map and like, whoa, we're part of, 8 other, 10 other, 20 other events. And if we're doing any promotions across our community, Income Movement has 60,000 members across the country. So we promote this pretty heavily. And we want to make sure that if you are inviting the community to participate, that people see pins for your events in there, so that other folks can sign up. But then there's also that making it easy for you guys, so that you don't feel like you have to worry about that communications and digital side. It's kind of all happening for you in the background.
Nice. Cool. Well, since we then kind of like just looked at the event map, I just wanted to then I thought we could check in and just see how things are going with everyone's event and like where they're at First Steps. I have gardening in the background. I don't know if you can hear that, but okay, cool. But yeah, if there are folks that want to share what they're doing and how things are looking, I know we have today Carissa, who is with United Parents and Students, and she is hosting an event. Carissa, would you like to kind of share a little bit about your event?
Sure. Yeah, so we are doing a film screening on the actual 21st of September. So we're doing Storming Caesar's Palace. And so I know someone in the chat had like asked if there was a specific reason that the day of action was on a Friday. So like when I was thinking of planning the event and everything, I realized like for our communities that we serve, I'm in the Los Angeles area. I was like, Fridays, I don't really see like being a good turnout for a film screening. So I just messaged Chelsea and I was like, hey, is it okay like if I do it, the day before? So at United Parents and Students, we do community organizing, and a large portion of our advocacy efforts now in Los Angeles is centered around guaranteed basic income. So a huge portion of our work is also around connecting with community members and educating them about what guaranteed basic income is and like what it can mean, not only for like individuals, but also what it could mean in communities, right? Like what happens when you have a huge influx of money being invested into a historically like low income or marginalized community. So we're actually doing a lot of different advocacy efforts throughout the month of September to support our work, but we really are interested in lots of ideas that are different. Like Stacy mentioned earlier, like we do tabling at like different community events or like farmers markets or stuff like that, and getting the conversation going, but we're always looking for creative ways of having the conversation as well. So that's why the film screening was definitely something I was very interested in. I specifically chose Storming Caesar's Palace because we've done a sort of workshop in the past with some community members that we serve. And we showed a portion of the clip, I think Inherent Good, that's the one we did. We did Inherent Good, and there was a lot of really positive reaction to the film. There was a really good discussion that came out of it. But one thing that I noticed when we were either in that workshop or when I'm talking to other communities throughout South Los Angeles is when I ask people, you know, raise your hand if you've ever heard of guaranteed income before, not a single person raises their hand. But when I ask the question, who's ever heard of the phrase welfare queen, almost like 90 to 95% of the room like raises their hand. And so I think Storming Caesar's Palace, the fact that it deals a lot with that sort of trope around the welfare queen and kind of debunking a lot of the stereotypes about it, I think will also really resonate with a lot of what people in the communities that we serve have experienced throughout their lives. And so that's kind of why I decided to go with that film.
That's
I
awesome.
don't know if you have anything else you want me to speak on, Kelsey.
No, I think that's, and I think the only thing is, like the location you decided you're doing.
Oh, okay.
That.
Yeah, so we at United Parents and Students, we're partnered with a charter school district in Los Angeles. They're Green Dot Charter Schools. And so a lot of our advocacy and education work is actually partnered with connecting with parents of these of the school district. And so since we were already planning different advocacy actions throughout the month of September, it just kind of worked out that we were going to be at that school site that week. And we just asked them, you know, hey, are we able to host like this, you know, workshop / film screening? And they were all on board for it. So
That's awesome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing with us all, like what you're up to, how the event's going, and the work that you all are doing. Does anyone else want to share kind of where they're at with thinking about hosting an event, or if you have some plans in the works?
Yeah, I'll share. So, yeah, I'm Brandon. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and this year I'm gonna try to do a private and a public event. For the private event, there's a kind of a community that I belong to. They let me host a monthly comedy night. I've already talked to them about getting a time slot to show this. Like I'm there all the time. They know me, and they've given me like potential times. And I mean, realistically, as long as you give me access to this or any of the films, we could pretty much post these any time of year. But I'd like to at least do that. For my public event, all I've really done is some research of places that I think have the ability to show a film and that might. This is where I'm going to need your help, is figuring out how to contact them and what to tell them, because a lot of them, yeah, I've never tried. Well, the last time I tried this, nobody got back to me at all. But you know, they're all like, well, sure, we'll rent it to you for $1,000 and you got to have, you know, 600 people show up. I'm like, no. So if you guys can walk me through how to contact these groups and what types of groups and how that whole deal works, that's pretty much what I'm going to need to do next.
I think a couple of things that's awesome, Brandon. Super excited to hear that, and that you're thinking about like how do you tap spaces that you already have and communities that you already have relationships with and invite them into the conversation, and then also potentially doing something public. I think a couple of the things that Carissa brought up, or that's are really cool and exciting, and also maybe a good just kind of food for thought as folks are thinking through things. One, I think Carissa talked about that they're doing it at a school, but they're doing it at the library in the school. And it just made me think of that public libraries are an amazing place to host events. It's actually like part of their community, like their hopes for engaging and bringing community into spaces, as well as like community centers. There's a lot of community centers or community-based spaces that have like a gym or like a larger rec room or something like that, that often has TVs, and those places often have all of the AV needs that you might have, whether it's a projector or, in a screen or whatever it might be. So those could be really powerful places to go to, rather than thinking like it needs to be in a movie theater, because often exactly what you're saying, Brandon, a lot of those are, for-profit spaces, and they need to know that they're going to be able to make a certain amount of money, by like kind of closing their doors to whatever programming they normally would have. They need to make sure they're going to make a certain amount of money. So I think that can be potentially a really great opportunity for us to just be thinking about what are the resources that our communities already have within them. And that also could be an opportunity to partner with somebody in your community that doesn't know anything about basic income, but might get them excited about, the idea of basic income. And there might be more intersectionality that happens because of that partner that you, that potential partner that you reach out to. Carissa, you had your hand up. Did you have other thoughts for Brandon?
Yeah, I was also going to suggest possibly like churches. I don't know if you have any church communities like within your network, but at least for our work as well, like that's something we found to be really helpful, is even though we are a nonprofit and we don't really have any religious affiliation, we do work with several church communities throughout Los Angeles, and that also helps us educate about guaranteed basic income when we work with different ministers or pastors or whatever the denomination is. They always say like, oh, like, would you like to come and speak to my congregation? And it kind of just helps us spread that way. So we always try to go for like places of community, especially if your goal is to kind of educate community. I know you said yours is kind of like half and half, almost like half private, half community based. But yeah, we always try to meet people like where they also feel very comfortable. So in our like experience, we found that to be like schools and churches to be like the most like successful.
Nice. Awesome. So let's maybe we'd love to maybe get a show of hands in a couple of different ways. So first, I guess it'd be cool to understand in this group that are here right now, how many of you are thinking about doing potentially doing some kind of event or some kind of activity that is not a film screening? Can you like either raise your hand physically if your screen is on, or just under the reactions or whatever, there's a raise your hand option so that we know how many folks are thinking of doing something other than a film screening. Okay. Then another, Mike, was that your hand going up or were you just saying hi? Okay. Hi, Mike. And then another question for you all, what, I guess maybe just at a very kind of base level right now, thinking about where you are at, you or your organization, if you have one, if you're associated with one, people who are feeling high likelihood that they're going to host some kind of event in their community. Can we see just a raise of hands so we have a sense? Okay. Naja, Leah, I see your actual maybe yes, Leah's on the okay. And Mike. Okay, sweet. Okay, fantastic. So I think it would be wonderful, and Alina also, thank you, to understand, and we can do this as a group, just coming off mic, but also in the chat, what questions or what things do you need right now in order, last week, and Chelsea can share maybe in the chat, we have a guide that kind of walks people through how to do kind of a step-by-step process of how to potentially host a film screening. And so if we think about the first 1 or 2 steps is decide you're going to do one and then identify a venue for it, a location, and identify like what film you might want to show. Like those are kind of the first little cluster of activities or actions. So for everybody who's raised their hands, what are the things you need support on right now to do those first pieces? Drop a pin, decide on a film, find a venue, so we can make sure we're kind of concentrating the rest of this time together in areas that are helpful in supporting you guys. So take a minute and think what you need. And if it's just like, I need more time, that's cool too. But let us know what you need.
I have a question. I've seen Inherent Good a couple times. And I watched the trailers for the other films. Do we have access? Can we watch the films prior to deciding? I'd kind of like to, I'd like to show one of the other 2 films, but I don't really know a lot about them other than the trailer.
Yeah, we can connect you with the filmmakers and they can make sure that they get you access to, we're kind of starting email strings with each of and adding anybody who's interested in potentially showing that film. We're adding organizers to that email string, and in that you can get access to make sure you're understanding like what the topics and things are. We also have this amazing film synopsis, kind of a film guide and synopsis, and details around accessing the film if you don't need if it's publicly available somewhere already. So Chelsea has that and is going to walk us through a little bit more around those details in a sec also. So there might be enough there, Mike, that you can make a decision, or if you need to have access to the film and it's not readily publicly available yet, we can guide you towards that. Okay, we see the questions rolling in, and some of it is around what are the films, where can we even see what the films are, and so maybe it's worth just dropping the film synopsis, both the guide and the film synopsis, into the chat so people can start to pull those up and look.
Yes, I'm getting those and I'll drop them in.
Sweet. In the meantime, some of the other questions that have come up is Income Movement going to host a watch party, like a virtual watch party? We may, I think we want to, as we've done that in the past. And I think some of it will be dependent on how many events are happening and how things are feeling. And as we communicate out to the broader community, if there's a significant interest from the community about hosting, having some kind of virtual watch party, we can. Virtual watch parties are a little bit funky. Just because like watching a film together is like online is kind of odd, but we've done it when we've had to, especially during the pandemic, and we can certainly do it again. Awesome. Thanks, Leah. So it looks like some of the other questions that are in here. It looks like most of these are like people are reaching out and trying to do some things. And then the questions about the films themselves and kind of connecting. And then Brandon's asking for if it would be cool to have maybe a little bit of a template for how to reach out to people. And we can certainly create like an outreach little email template to be able to make sure that you're kind of including whatever key things in our experience has been helpful. Awesome, Alina, like coordinating, reaching out to some other folks. Let's maybe look at, maybe we go through a couple of these pieces just at a high level so you guys can see what these are. Chelsea, do you want to go through? Do you want me to go through? How do you want to do this?
I can go through them. Do you want to go through both?
Let's start with the film info and synopsis because that's new, so that'll be new
Yeah.
to everybody here. And then we can go to the kind of guide, the step by step, like here's things you can do, just and reserve some questions for that towards the end.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, let me make sure my tab is there. Okay. Gotta make this bigger. Can everyone see that? Sweet. So this is kind of just the film synopsis and info for access. So there's a little intro just before diving into them. And the main thing I want to point is like if this is a film that you are going to select for your film screening, we will be making a direct intro to the filmmakers. So that way, you know, they can help you make sure you have access to the film, and then also any kind of like logistical questions that might not be covered here that they can support you on. And all three of them do a lot of film screenings, and so they will know the answers. So first we have Inherent Good. And we've kind of included just like a little background of what the film is about, a link to the movie poster and their discussion guide, and then their website. And then we include kind of like the themes, and then any like language and accessibility features, and then the how to access. And so this is kind of like just the different options you have, but also like the actual kind of handover of the film will be kind of like done with the filmmakers if like these options don't work. And then Stacy, do you want me to like read the no? Okay.
I don't think so. I think just giving it at a high level, we can then open it up for questions around this.
Cool. And then Raising the Floor, that is a shorter film. It's about 30 minutes. And this also has kind of like similar structure of like links you need to the website, links to the movie poster, link to the discussion guide, and then kind of any themes relevant, and how to access the film. For Raising the Floor, they are also working on kind of a one-pager that I will actually like link into here so you can have access to it. They have just like they wanted to create a one-pager that has some of the like licensing specifics, but also will be connecting you with them. So you won't get kind of like lost on how to access the film. And then Storming Caesar's Palace, that one is an hour and a half, same kind of format, and their access is pretty like straightforward, as they will provide you like a Vimeo link, so then you can like download the film to screen.
At a high level, just so that you have a sense, if you've never heard of these films or seen any of these films and you want to just understand a little bit at a basic level. So Inherent Good is a really good kind of introduction into the idea of basic income. It was the first ever documentary about basic income made here in the United States and about the United States. So it talks, it's really designed as a kind of entry point for anybody who doesn't know much about it. It highlights both a small town that the main factory is left and the town is kind of in decay, and they talk about the idea of what would happen if there was a basic income in place here, like what would that do to revitalizing the community or the local economy and things like that, as well as it focuses on Magnolia Mothers Trust, the pilot, one of the first pilots that happened in the US here, and actually kind of follows that a few of the participants through the first ever cohort. The second film, the Raising the Floor, is really specifically about Chelsea Eats, which is a pilot here, and the relationship of the pandemic in a rising need for direct cash and support in basic income, and the collective work of the community together with the city council to make it so that more people in the community could participate in a pilot. And then the third, Storming Caesar's Palace, is really in many ways kind of besides it's incredibly powerful and exciting and has a lot of energy to it. It focuses really on the history, some of the early forms of the modern era of the idea of basic income and a guaranteed adequate income. Its focus is specifically on Black mothers in the 60s and 70s and their work in reforming welfare and advocating for their own needs, and eventually really coming to the conclusion that a basic income is fundamental to having healthy families and healthy kids and all of those pieces. So you get to follow one specific activist, Ruby Duncan, and a group of women collectively with her who go through a pretty amazing process in advocating for their rights within the welfare system and beyond. And so those are the three at a high level. So Carissa was speaking to, like, Storming Caesar's Palace feels powerful for her community because of kind of this idea of the welfare queen as an entry point into having a deeper conversation in her community makes sense. Other folks might decide they want to do, there's a pilot happening in your community, and Raising the Floor feels like a really good entry point to talk about what's happening in your own community around basic income. Or it might be that you think, having something that's just kind of an entry point, high level, 1 hour, let's kind of dig into the idea of basic income feels right for you guys. So it's really up to you to make those decisions about what makes sense. And again, we'll do everything we can to support you and connect you to the filmmakers to make sure you have what you need. You don't have to facilitate a conversation after you screen the film. We know a lot of people want to have a conversation afterwards. So that's what those discussion guides are there for. Those are from the filmmakers or in partnership with Income Movement and the filmmakers to think about what might be some really good topics that you could dig into with folks after the film has been watched. Any questions or thoughts, kind of pausing here around the films, access, all that good stuff? Okay. Sweet. I think the last piece is that guide, and this guide really in many ways is kind of the I don't know what the term would be, but like the most important piece as you go through this process, because we've really tried to detail all the things that could possibly come up and the resources that are available, and even just the process. Like putting a pin on that map looks really awesome, and sometimes it's a little bit of a clunky experience. So like there's some information about how to put that pin on the map, or what order to do things in order for it to feel kind of smooth and easy for you. So we can pull that up and just highlight a few of the pieces in there so that you guys kind of know the scope and breadth of it. And then also I do think, and maybe as Chelsea's pulling it up and she can walk you guys through it, but I think one of the things that is important that came up in the last conversation is that you can put a pin on the map and just use a general, like a square, like a central square in your town if you don't know the venue yet, but you want to make sure that people in the community, like as Income Movement, sends out our next email to our 60,000 people, it'll have links to this if you want to make sure people across, in your area know that there's an event happening, but you just don't yet know exactly where it's happening. You can drop a pin on the map and then you can update it. You can add new information. Once you've created it, you can continue to add to it. But we do recommend, is if it's possible for you to get the map on, if you feel pretty solid that you're going to do an event, getting that pin on the map can be really an important way to make sure that people have enough notice. Some people work in like months, and so we definitely, they look at like they might be looking at September now to figure out what they're going to do. Having that pin on the map can really be helpful to make sure that people know to save the date for whatever event you're planning for.
Awesome. Thanks, Stacy. Yeah, so I am sharing this, what the kind of like screening guide is now. We have broken it up into like all the steps you could, I think of, for just like wanting to host a Day of Action film screening. And just at a high level, we've included like ways that Income Movement is here to support your event, resources and links that kind of like make sure you have the links to like the Basic Income March website, the event map, the toolkit, which is like the Google Drive that this lives in. We've also included like social media event kind of promotion graphic templates we're using with Canva. And then also a link to the kind of like direct action that folks can take at the event, which is signing the I Support Basic Income open letter. And also there is like a general kind of sign up for folks that are just interested in basic income and want to learn more. And then for kind of like details of hosting the Day of Action event, we've kind of gone into like how to get that pin up on the map. There is even a tutorial video I made several years ago that you can watch that like literally walks you through the whole thing. And then yeah, choosing the film and determining kind of like what are the basic details you want to add to the event description. And then when you get to kind of like finishing up publishing the event pin, and now it lives on the map, then what? We've kind of broken it out into then different parts of like getting the word out and just putting in some tips of like how you can promote your event, how you can help like, with communications to guests, when is a good time to like reach out to the people that are RSVPing. And then there's tips for preparation for the event, thinking about like how the structure of your event kind of will go, any tools and resources or different activities that you'd like to do. And then also like it includes like a reminder of tech check, which can just be like really helpful and also give you a peace of mind of like, okay, I know to just kind of like walk through that before you do your event. And then yeah, you don't have to like stress out about like, something's not, why isn't this playing, when you have folks kind of waiting to watch the event or the film. And then there's a part 6 of just like the day of event, which is like having fun, asking people to sign on to the I Support Basic Income letter, and making sure you take photos and you can like share those with attendees after too, which is always great. And then we kind of end with like wanting to like, how do you maintain momentum after you've had a great event in your community? And then at the end is my email. If you have any questions or need additional support, I am here.
Any thoughts or questions or things? Now that we've kind of,
Yes, thank you so much, Chelsea. I love how you guys always break things down in steps for us. It makes it super easy. I was just going to share with other organizers what I'm kind of into right now. So in Atlanta in 2020, we actually screened Inherent Good. A friend of mine had contacts with the historic theater, and they were willing to put a screen and do it outside in the back parking lot since it was the height of COVID. And it was a really fun event. So I'm excited to be able to do it again. I'm no longer in Atlanta, so I don't have the same contacts and things that I had before. So I can definitely understand like new organizers, you know, where do I do this? What's my venue? I went to my local library last week and mentioned it to the lady behind the desk, and she seemed excited about it, but the director was busy, so I didn't get to speak with her. I left my name and phone number and email, but I haven't heard back. So I just today sent an email to like the whole county, the director of the whole county's libraries, because really any location would work. And then also I volunteer at a place called the Pregnancy Crisis Center that gives women, you know, free diapers and formula and things like that. And I was thinking of screening Storming Caesar's Palace for the mothers that we serve at that center, because it's in Daytona, which almost half the population is in poverty, and also almost half the population is African American. So I'm hoping that that will motivate these mothers to become activists themselves. So that's just where I'm at, to give you guys an idea.
awesome. That's fantastic. We can definitely pull together, we've seen it in the chat, a few different places. Some, like we said, some of the email, you know, or outreach, the content for trying to find a good venue, a good location for things, because we're doing that for some of the events that that some of our team members are potentially going to be facilitating and kind of organizing. So we'll share anything that we're creating for our own stuff for any of those events kind of with you all, so you have access to it for sure. How about other folks? Any other questions or thoughts? Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I guess I'll put it out there. I think I'm going to do Inherent Good again. It's just a good entry point, and that's really where we're at. I mean, this is still a really relatively unknown topic, so I think that's really a good entry point for my needs. I think I'm going to do. I like Brandon's idea of doing a private and a public showing. I've got a backdrop, big thing, and a projector, so we'll probably do something in my backyard for a private event. And then my wife works at the library. I know the director really well. Could certainly host a public event there. So I think between the two, probably do them on different days, most likely, but definitely do a public and a private showing, and hopefully get some people interested. So.
Awesome.
Nice. I love like the at home, like I know during the pandemic, when we did kind of like when we did the virtual watch party, I had like my roommates at the time like come and watch with us. And as kind of like organizers, I think, I don't know, at least for me, sometimes like, I'm spreading the word and advocating out to just like whoever, like the public. But then it's like sometimes those like personal conversations with like a best friend or just like someone who I like know through some other avenue I haven't had. And so those like personal, like your own kind of like tighter knit community is also like really effective too and important.
Awesome. Does anybody have any kind of last, as we're coming up to the top of our hour, does anybody have any last questions or thoughts about kind of those first steps of like venue, pin on the map, anything? Because we want to make sure our next meeting together will be in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks that might start to feel like it's a little bit too close to be able to if you're still on the fence or not sure about certain aspects of it. So I think this next 2 weeks is a really important set of 2 weeks for getting the venue, getting the pin on, and those kinds of things. And we want to make sure you leave here feeling pretty comfortable, either how to do that or who to reach out to. Chelsea, if you have questions during the next couple of weeks and you're doing your work.
I for folks that have an event on the pin, I will also be starting to do those introductions to the filmmakers. So just this week, be on the lookout for that.
And then as we've been putting into the chat and kind of mentioning the last kind of little pieces of follow-ups, this has been recorded. So the recording of this will be shared out, as well as just a set of notes to the 2 or 3 main, like the link to the map, a link to the guide, and a link to the film synopses. We'll send those out to you guys as well, just so that you have it in an email at the top of your email string for you to be able to dig a little bit more into things as you do your work. But as always, that'll come from Chelsea, and as always, just reach out to Chelsea if you have any questions. I'll be CC'd on those as well. So like if there's anything that feels kind of bigger that you really need to dig into, just reach out to us and we'll do whatever we can to support you. The other piece that's worth noting is I think we just mentioned really briefly, and it's at the top of the guide, but we have created templates for social media graphics and things like that, so that your event has kind of that that broader kind of shared collective branding, and it's kind of clear that it's part of something that's happening across the country. We'll as pins drop, we'll most likely, if we don't see that there's been a graphic created for your event yet, we'll probably just go in and make one, because it just takes a few minutes to duplicate and add in the date and the time and things like that. So and that we'll actually start to share those on our own social media channels, and just really try to help get the word out, both within the broader ecosystem of the community of basic income, and then also just out into the webosphere. Anybody that we can, like, let them know that stuff's happening, and that your events are happening, to help you get your attendance numbers up, and for you to maybe meet some new people that you don't know, if that's kind of one of your own goals as well.
Cool. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our meeting, right?
Yes.
No last questions. And if there are any, you know where to find me.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great couple of weeks. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.